I want for you all to access the information that we've created for you as much as possible. I want it to be used. I want it to empower us. I want to create a new world with it. I sound a little bit crazy, I know, but it's like the idea is to really inspire, change in the world. I think I'm jumping ahead of myself, but it's a lot about utilizing the materials so we really can create this more abundant, ecologically awake, and loving centered world, a more peaceful world. But so that's part of like, do it, get in there, use the courses, and we're going to get really into detail about what that looks like as well. But okay, so my wish in creating this content is essentially that, is empowering you all to connect to the plant kingdom so that we can create a world that's filled with health, that's filled with beauty, that's filled with abundance. And I'm doing it with the lens of a plant person, of an herbalist, of somebody that, when I wake folks up, when I wake you up, when I inspire you, and I'm not sure everyone's history. I know Talia, she's been an herbal person with me for maybe 30 years now. There's many of us in this mix. So we have newbies, and so happy for that. And then we have really experienced herbalists. Okay, so back to the wish. So it's this big, deep wish that in creating this work and sharing this work, we are inspired to connect to nature through the plant kingdom, to create, and in that connection, we become caretakers of our ecosystem. And that also is about caretaking ourselves and the animals. So it's from that sort of entry point that, that this work is in that context. Of course, it's hugely about tastiness too, and it's about making beautiful food. It's about bringing the healing plants through eating them into our lives and feeling that deep nourishment that helps, again, to shift our perspective in the world. So what am I saying? I'm wishing for you to become plant detectives. So what does that mean? Folks that are tuned into the plant kingdom. So you really know your plants. So you are able to look at what often people call the green curtain or the green carpet and differentiate the species of plants that we are stepping on, that we're interacting with, that we're brushing up against. So learning the plants. We don't even need to know their names or how we use them initially, or even in long term. We want to just be connected to the ecosystem, and this is the manner in which this is a beautiful entry point. So it's plant detective work, awakening, basically bringing plant fluency back into our culture. And then it's also about kitchen savvy, or as I call it, releasing the wild, or how would you say, releasing or inspiring the wild food, inner wild food chef. So it's all about again, learning how to use those wild plants to create delicious food. And in that act of creating food direct from Mother Earth, we really also speak to some deep core values that I want to see more of in the world. So it's really just making that really direct nature connection and feeding ourselves from it, actually in our bodies, but also energetically. And okay, so my wish also is, well, in order for you to be able to do that, to have that direct sustenance, that connection with nature, you want to become excellent foragers. So in order to not kill yourself, to eat the wrong plant, to eat the wrong mushroom, we need to know how to key these plants or these fungi out. We're not focusing on fungi in this particular session, in these courses right now. So what else to say about my goals here? Yeah, so in these next few minutes, I really want you also to become very familiar with how to use the courses, how we laid them out, how to get the most from them. And okay, so let's go. I have my notes here on the side. I guess along the ideas of connection to the plants, there is this thing that I say, speaking plant. So how do we get us all to be speaking plant? How do we become fluent in the language of plants? And I really do that. Well, Sam helps me do that through the visual medium. So you become it's through our senses that we do that. It's an organoleptic connection, and we're going to get deep into that with the foraging fundamentals, but it's woven throughout all the programs that we offer. So it's really about being able to hear the plants, being able to connect with the plants. And it's not anything heavy or mystical. It's just really straightforward presence. And we'll get into more of that, as I said. And what else? Yeah, so another big theme in all of this, and I've sort of touched upon it already, but it's understanding our place within the web of life. So connecting to our responsibilities. So as foragers, it becomes really obvious that we need to caretake the ecosystem. Otherwise, we can't eat the food. We can't eat from it because we have created toxicity. So all of these courses, are really meant to bring you into that mindset of relationship, ecosystem relationship through plant connection. And that means taking care of our water. That means, really considering the soil health. How do we make sure that the land that we're eating from is safe enough to eat? And that has to do with being active, either speaking to our neighbors, talking to the town board, really rethinking what we're doing with herbicides and pesticides. Because as I forgot who said that, all of the weeds are their favorites, me too. And that's what we feature in this program, in these programs that you have. We feature those really abundant weedy plants that millions of dollars are being used to eradicate. And the whole goal here is to shift that paradigm, to change that thinking, right? So the dandelion becomes elevated to its rightful place as one of our most nutritious plants that we have. So the leaf of the dandelion, the root, and so on, the flowers, there's so many gifts in that dandelion. Why are we spending millions and millions of dollars eradicating a gift? Okay, you can hear my passion about this, but yes. So, okay, one thing that I want to get right off my chest here is, as much as I want to encourage you to be eating these wild plants, there is no rush in doing so. You cannot eat anything that you haven't identified with 100% accuracy. So that's super critical. I always say that with all the classes, with everything. And I see someone, is Joanna raising her hand, or is she just stretching? Good. But the idea is to not rush this journey, right? Most of us have been disconnected from this process. I wasn't raised as a forager. And so to relearn this art, to relearn this science, it takes time. And there is risk, there's danger. So we can still engage this journey without having to eat anything for a full year or more. You're still going to be fed in different ways. You may not actually eat the plant yet, but you're going to be learning about the plants. You're going to be doing plant meditation work. That's what this is about. It's about spending slow time with the plant kingdom, so you really get to know the plant. But in the process, you really also get to know yourself to some extent. So there's a reset that happens inside ourselves, especially as we do the foraging fundamentals, how to meet a plant technique, which we'll get to later. We really film in real time, so you get to imprint visually and audio. You're really learning with me how to connect to the plant. This is key. You're going to meet the plant in only one stage, perhaps within a lesson. And part of your job then is to meet the plant in that lesson, but then to track it through its life cycle. Super important. As foragers, we use plants differently depending on what stage they're in. And sometimes we don't use them at all after a certain stage. So plant literacy, my wish for you to be very plant literate, is that you go through the tracking process of plants. You really are, perhaps you choose to stake, you write on a wooden stake or something, and you put names all around. If you can, wherever you are, if you live in the city, you can secretly tag things. So you can walk by and say, oh, yes. And then you watch that plant change from leafy stage to flower stage to seed. if it's a tree that you're tracking, you may track that tree for decades. So this is a very beautiful slow time exercise. Tracking plants is part of being an excellent forager because you are knowing the plant from its babyhood to its senescence, it's till when it's over. And so, okay, knowing plants through their life cycle, super important. So track that plant. So we give you little, we give you big tastes, but in specific moments of a plant's life. And you need to take that further through time. Foragers are ecological stewards. So it's important for us to become active in our communities in terms of, of helping to clean up the situation, to really discuss toxicity. And I know it's difficult and it's super hard for me as well. How do I do that? But still, if we can voice some of that wherever we can we talk about having a dandelion festival? And then that'll change everyone's views of what dandelions are, right? So you have this beautiful festival in May, and all of a sudden everybody loves their dandelions rather than the herbiciding that goes on. So speak with your neighbor again, or the town board, get political, or just talk to people, just chat and share the abundance that they have in their lawn and how to consider it as food or medicine rather than trying to eradicate it. So ecological stewardship, we are biodiversity helpers. That's another role that we play. And so this brings me to another really important point. When we forage, our foraging can create more biodiversity. So as humans, as keystone species, we can create more abundance from our actions, and not always devastation or destruction, which is often how we do function on Earth. But we have that other option. With plants, we want to know, is this an abundant plant? And that is the big theme of these courses. They're abundant weedy plants. And so in our eating them, we helped to control them. And then if you meet a plant that's endangered, for example, golden seal comes to mind, you maybe won't harvest that, but you will protect it, and you will actually want to replenish it, perhaps grow it, create sites that have golden seal patches. So the idea is that our relationship to the plants and our using of the plants, even like, for example, if we're going to forage a bush's, like for cramp bark, and you're going to strip its bark, you would prune it to actually encourage more growth from that cramp bark. So your harvesting makes that cramp bark healthier. So that's the metaphor, in a sense, is that our harvesting, we're pinching and we're pruning and we're shaping, we're co-creating the ecosystem. I feel blessed. I have a little bit of land around us, and we work to create these wild, abundant gardens where maybe 500 species of plants live, and many of them are weedy wild things, and many of them are rare. And so it's this dance, this playing, of helping create more biodiversity. And of course, I'm using my lens to decide what that is, but I'm working with nature, who shares all these other plants that arrive, and I learn from them, and then I decide how many should stick around. We do have that power. We have a lot of power. So the idea is for us as foragers to take that relationship to nature and through the plants and our way that we eat to create more health, ecologically speaking. And as I'm talking here, hoping you might have questions that are arising, or some comments that you might be private chatting to Sam, because we'll break in a couple of minutes just to check in with you all. Let me just go through. The kitchen savvy piece is also pretty key here. So foragers are improvisers. We respond to what shows up. And that's again, the same point, is we're not going to forage the thing that might show up that's endangered. We might actually not gather it, we protect it. So we're responding to ecological reality, and kitchen savvy has everything to do with that, because when something like this year, the fruit, the wild berries were crazy. They just flowed in. And so we want to know, how can we plug in all these different fruits, right? We may not always have those fruits though. But the kitchen savvy and the master recipes, which are the way that I teach how to cook and how to make medicine, is so that you can plug in what bounty arrives at your feet. You know, that's the goal. So if one year the wild lettuce just really isn't happening, you still have plenty of chickweed. You have plenty of other leafy greens to put in that salad bowl. So the idea is kitchen savvy has to do with understanding anatomy of recipes. So you are understanding a blueprint for how to build something, but within that, you understand how you can plug in what comes your way without the house completely transformed, unless that's your choice and you want it to become completely something else. So that's another option. But the kitchen literacy piece, the kitchen savvy, the master recipes are another really important part to bringing that wild food bounty into reality, into the kitchen. And the recipes are designed so you do not feel dead-ended, you know, but it's an open-ended experiment. You're constantly learning. So you can be anywhere in the world, perhaps, and plug in, you know, the gratin recipe based on what wild greens are growing. Let's say you're in Romania or you're in France or whatever, but a lot of the plants that we feature are global cosmopolitan weeds. So most of you are going to see a bunch of these that we featured. So don't forget, yeah, it's all about releasing your inner wild food chef.